What if the one thing that could save a man from a lifetime of silence wasn't technology, wealth, or medicine, but a baby who didn't even know his name? Stay with this story, because what begins in absolute loneliness ends in a miracle no one saw coming. Adrian Holt had everything the world measures success by. His name opened doors before he even reached them. His fortune could buy entire companies without denting his lifestyle. His estate sprawled across manicured land, a mansion so grand that footsteps echoed like whispers even when no one spoke. Yet every night, Adrian sat alone at the head of a long dining table, staring at beautifully plated meals that tasted like nothing at all. The silence around him wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. He hadn't always lived this way. Adrian was born with perfect hearing, a man who once loved music, conversation, and the buzz of busy rooms. But in his early 30s, a sudden and aggressive illness stole that part of his life in a matter of months. Doctors tried everything. Treatments failed. Promises faded. And one day, the world simply went quiet. Permanently. Conversations became moving lips. Laughter became shaking shoulders. Life continued, loud and alive for everyone else, while Adrian remained sealed behind invisible walls. His employees respected him, even admired him, but none truly knew him. His wealth shielded him from inconvenience but deepened his isolation. He communicated through notes and brief gestures, efficient and distant. Over the years, the silence stopped being just a condition. It became his closest companion and his cruelest enemy, reminding him nightly of everything he could no longer touch. He tried to fill the emptiness. Expensive art lined the walls. Rare meals were prepared with precision. Donations flowed quietly to charities across the world. But nothing reached the hollow space inside him. The mansion, once alive with parties and music, had become a museum of memories he could no longer fully experience. Staff moved softly through hallways, careful not to intrude, while Adrian existed beside them, not with them. Loneliness settled into his chest, heavy and unrelenting. Among the staff was Rosa Melendez, a cleaning woman with tired eyes and a gentle strength that came from surviving more than life had ever been fair about. She worked diligently, treating the mansion with respect as if it were a living thing. Every morning, she greeted Adrian with a warm smile, even though she knew he couldn't hear her voice. Recently, Rosa had become a mother. Her baby boy, Matteo, was small, bright-eyed, and full of restless curiosity. His laugh had a way of filling rooms, even hearts. With no one to watch Matteo during long evening shifts, Rosa brought him along, keeping him safely in the staff area where he wouldn't disturb anyone. Or so she thought. One cold autumn evening, Adrian sat alone once again, dinner steaming in front of him beneath the soft glow of a crystal chandelier. The silence pressed harder than usual that night, sinking into his bones. Somewhere down the hall, Matteo wriggled free from his playpen. Driven by curiosity and unsteady determination, he toddled toward the warm light spilling from the dining room. Before Rosa could stop him, the baby wandered into the grand room. Adrian looked up and froze. Standing near his chair was a tiny child, wide-eyed and smiling as if he'd discovered something wonderful. Surprise cracked Adrian's usual composed expression. Matteo stared at the massive table, the polished silverware, and the man seated quietly at its head, utterly fascinated. Moments later, Rosa rushed in, horrified. She apologized frantically through gestures, reaching to pick Matteo up. But the baby resisted, stretching his arms toward Adrian with a joyful squeal. Adrian couldn't hear it, but he felt something shift in the air, a vibration he hadn't noticed in years. A warmth spread through his chest, unfamiliar and sudden. For the first time in a very long time, Adrian smiled. He lifted a hand gently, signaling Rosa to stop. Hesitant and embarrassed, she set Matteo down again. The child crawled toward Adrian's plate, captivated by the colors of the food and the reflections dancing across the silverware. Adrian watched, something soft and fragile stirring inside him. Then Matteo did something no one expected. He placed his tiny palm flat against Adrienne's chest and looked up at him with an expression far too serious for someone so small. That simple touch, warm and unguarded, sent a shiver through Adrienne. It had been years since anyone had touched him without pity, without fear, without expectation. Matteo babbled happily, sounds Adrienne couldn't hear but somehow felt deep inside. It was as if a door long sealed had cracked open. The next evening, Adrienne handed Rosa a written note. He asked if Matteo could visit the dining room again. Rosa stared at the words, stunned, but nodded. From that night on, the visits became routine. Matteo sat at the enormous table with his colorful lunchbox while Adrienne ate his formal meals. The baby clapped, waved, leaned against Adrienne's arm, completely unaware that he was changing a man's life. Staff whispered in amazement as weeks passed. The distant, untouchable millionaire seemed different. Lighter. More present. Adrienne began noticing things he'd long ignored. The vibration of footsteps through the floor. The movement of air when doors opened. The subtle rhythm of life around him. Doctors had told him his hearing would never return, and they were right. But something else had awakened. He wasn't hearing again. He was feeling again. One evening, Matteo climbed onto Adrienne's lap and pressed his ear against Adrienne's chest, giggling as he discovered the steady rhythm of a heartbeat. Adrienne felt the vibration of that giggle ripple through him, powerful and alive. Tears slipped down his face without warning. Rosa froze, terrified she'd done something wrong. Adrienne gently shook his head and smiled. These were good tears. Over time, Adrienne learned to communicate with Matteo through expressions, gestures, and touch. The mansion was no longer truly silent. It pulsed with warmth, connection, and a joy that didn't require sound. Seeing their bond, Adrienne made a decision that stunned everyone. He offered Rosa a private cottage on the property, a better salary, and a safe home for Matteo. Rosa cried, overwhelmed by kindness she never imagined receiving. Adrienne Holt, once locked away in silence, had found something richer than sound. Connection. Family. Life. As he watched Matteo fall asleep in Rosa's arms one quiet evening, Adrienne finally understood the miracle the child had given him. Not hearing. Not wealth. But the simple truth that he was no longer alone. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe and tell us in the comments, would you let a small act of innocence change your life too?